Hey guys, Thomas the Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth to my Discord server you can join, collab and do all that cool stuff for free, and sharing will be reminded at the end of the review. With all that out of the way, let's get into Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So of course, I had known about this movie for quite a bit now, and with it simultaneously almost marking the end of the DCEU, whether that was intentional or not, probably more so not, but here we are. This movie was definitely one that was going to be an uphill battle for the writers and so on and so forth, as well as the complications of certain real-life actors getting into trouble, particularly one, but at the end of the day, I'm here to review the movie as objectively as possible. Now, that is to account the previous movie as a sort of launching pad, but of course taking the outside of whatever actors are doing or not doing not into account for the sake of being as fair as conceivably possible. I think that's the best and responsible thing to do as a reviewer, despite what someone may or may not have done. Though I do still think that the choices to include these actors in general when they have done such things after the fact is still a poor decision, generally speaking. So I would wish that that would start with the prior Flash controversy and now this. I would hope that studios would begin to realize with this stuff just keeping popping up, and with it being more readily available, that they would be able to be like, yeah, we're just gonna let go of this person now and replace them, and just be like, yeah, fuck it. Like, I'm pretty sure people would actually not only understand that more, but quite frankly, I think they would respect the studios for getting rid of people who are legit doing really bad stuff. With that out of the way, of course, we have to get into the movie. Now, with Aquaman, I barely remember the movie. I did initially, when I was not, doing the whole trying to be as objective as possible thing, I remember enjoying the movie, but man, do I barely remember anything from it, from the first movie, and I did not feel up to watching it again, quite frankly. That is how poorly the DCEU has been recently, is that I didn't even feel like venturing back into the time of the first Aquaman movie. Luckily, the movie does a little bit of recap for us here, but we'll get to that in just a bit. The movie actually starts off on this boat and these people being assaulted by some generic bad guys, and Aquaman coming in to the rescue. And as this is sort of happening, it's sort of interspliced as it's also him telling the story to his child in this movie, his son. So, as I was mentioning, he talks about how we see sort of a already montage of what he's going through, that he going through the motions of politics and actually being in that scenario he really hates it. More so, I think it's more so a lesson of he just hates not being listened to. And I think, because I barely remember this from the first movie, and I saw one other person's review on it saying how they were backtracking Aquaman from the first movie, how he was actually, all about being the leader of this kingdom. So I think there could have been a way to actually make this work, honestly. I think the opening could have used a little bit more integration in the opening segment for Aquaman's backstory, or continuation here, to allow us to understand why would he hate politicking so much, though to the extent that we know that he's already tired of it is that he's tired of not being listened to. And again, I think they could have played out maybe a legit longer scene of that happening rather than it being montaged so quickly. I think that's one of the very first issues in this movie, and it's coming out right out of the gate, so we're not already in a great place, even looking at this as objectively possible. Again, typically speaking, when you do a montage, you typically save that for a training session, or when there's quote-unquote downtime, but there's not really much quote-unquote happening. That's usually the marker of when you want to place, a montage, not at the beginning of your movie, typically speaking. In fact, I don't ever think I've recalled a movie prior, in my knowledge, ever doing a montage so early in its runtime outside of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, so this could be a first, and quite frankly, it's showing that you probably might want to avoid that as a go-to as your opening, stratagem for writing. Again, it's more typically reserved for later moments in your movie, if that's something you want to even, go for. But, we have the return of a villain, or rather his son, Black Mantis. We see this interspliced with the backstory from the first movie, how he took out the father, the previous Black Mantis, and how we saw the son in the first movie, how he's almost taken out, but Aquaman let him go, and now he is the one taking revenge. So a pretty straightforward villain in terms of initial sort of, wanting simple revenge, and though how that escalates is kind of, I guess, similar to Wish in a way, but I'm going to argue probably makes a little less sense here. So as they're as these other researchers are, researching the Arctic or wherever they are, they get pulled in by this creature, tentacle thingamabob. And that's when we begin to see, as his human name, David, turns up later on to investigate further about what's going on down there. And so, once he gets down there, he finds this broken trident, and he reattaches it, this green trident, and it glows its ominous glow, and his eyes turn green, emanating, and he has a voice speaking to him, saying that he will be given this this new quenchable power if this being is freed, essentially, and he's already come into the possession of this, I guess I'll say, a quote-unquote demonic force. And speaking of things that are progressing our story swiftly, is that another 5 months pass. Now, again, this is typically when you want to, skip established, the thing that they're trying to get across with this time jump in particular is that his particular group, the antagonist group, are now well organized. Even though, again, he just has this team with him, and they're just already signed up to, I think they already know what he wants? I'm not really sure. At least one character seems to know, or at least learns, and then, that actually does have a slightly meaningful payoff, I suppose, but nonetheless, speaking of the council in the politics I was referring to, Aquaman suggests to said council that they reveal themselves to the land of the humans. which is a bizarre thing to suggest considering the Justice League is already a thing established at this point and Aquaman was already out there. I mean, wouldn't somebody be like, he's just an Atlantean in at this point? I'm a little bit confused by this. How they don't know that this isn't a thing yet. Like, how they've not discovered this or looked into it is a little baffling to me. They should have thought that through a little bit harder rather than just saying they just don't know, because that doesn't really make a lot of sense, logically speaking. Again, Aquaman was already in combat. He was already considered a hero on Earth. So why people wouldn't look into that further is, again, beyond me. And maybe that might have been just led to for some specific groups, maybe, I don't know. But the world building just doesn't satisfy that conclusion here at all in any regard, which is, again, baffling to say the least. And again, apologize for looking off to the side, that's where my notes are. So as he's upset about the council not giving his way, one of his allies says about this whole thing about like how not giving up is like this brave thing to do or whatever. Meanwhile, Mantis now takes his already prepped crew down into the trenches, the deep, to find a power source in this world called orichalcum. Now, either that's I don't know my minerals all that well, but either that's a real one and I forgot, or that is just straight up from Final Fantasy, because I know that's from Final Fantasy, at least. I don't remember if that's a real world resource, again. It could just be from Final Fantasy, I don't know. Again, if it's real, but whatever. I just find it baffling that they would use a material that's from something else. At least to my knowledge, I think orichalcum was introduced in Final Fantasy from the get-go, maybe. I don't know. It was pretty early on, if anything else, so I'm pretty sure that would have beaten out a lot of... Anyway, we'll just move on. So, their little squad gets attacked, so they begin fighting back. And some of the Atlanteans find out that they're trying to, do this attack, so they're fighting back. We see Aquaman's wife, the one who's barely in the movie, the one that got in trouble and all that stuff, who could have, for the sake of just saying it again, could have just easily been replaced. I mean, quite frankly, she's not in this movie all that much. She comes in and kind of gets owned alongside some other woman. I think it's Aquaman's mom, if I remember the first movie. Because I don't think they mention it here in the second movie at all, but again, I'm going off the memory of the first movie from what I can remember of it. So, they go... oh man, my notes are a little bit weird here. But then again, so is this movie at a certain point. So, anyway, Aquaman is like, okay, the only one, because Black Mantis escaped, so he's like, okay, so the only person apparently that knows where he'd probably be hiding out is my brother, the guy on the left there. And I'm like, really? That's what you're really gonna go with in terms of writing? Like, you can talk to animals, like, you're not even gonna try that first? Like, see if any other animals can, like, commune back to you and be like, hey, he's over there or something? Not even gonna try? I mean, this movie's just not really showing off what, well, Aquaman's main power is until, like, way later on in the movie, which he does it later on in the movie, so I'm not sure why he doesn't do it here. It's one of those cases of just use the power when it's quote-unquote necessary, even though, again, probably could have found him even faster that way, but who knows. Again, wouldn't hurt to at least try to be like, hey, at least they were thinking about that, instead of having me having to criticize that he didn't think about that. That obvious attempt to find where he could be hiding, this guy could be hiding out. He ends up getting a stealth suit in the process. He ends up rescuing his brother. They have their beef throughout the movie. But he helps them escape. He gets the water, so he gets powered up again. So now they're fighting together. But Mantis arrives back on the scene. And meanwhile, his doctor guy is trying to consistently warn Aquaman's team of, like, no, I just want to explore, so all this stuff, all this kidnapping stuff and all this stealing stuff, that wasn't wasn't my part of my plan, so he was willing to give Aquaman the heads up throughout the movie as well. So at least that's consistency, and I'm trying to point out the very few good things in this movie, I suppose. But unfortunately, Aquaman gets captured, and he's brought into this, alongside his brother. They're brought into this, like, what they call this pirate territory. There, they have to fight their way out, or after some trying to finagle their way out through just talking, when that doesn't seem to be working in their favor, they end up fighting their way out. And they end up on this island where the power source is making all the creatures on it super big. So you see these super big bugs, these super big insects, and these super big plants as well. We have a chase scene where they're being chased by the big ants and all that stuff, and we see in the trailer where he breaks the statue to get them across it. This, like, chasm that they push the ants through when they're, like, trying to crawl along. The Doc, we cut back to him. He sees the trident, and he combines it himself, and he sees the threat that has been, quote-unquote, awoken, and Mantis re-threatens him once again to get in line, or, get out of the way, essentially. So the brothers move back up on the base, and the doctor meets up with the two of them, and he just gives up, and then he's like, hey, he finally informs them. He's like, hey, I'm just this researcher guy, I was trying to see Atlantis, I was trying to do all this nonsense, so, I'm good, we're good, so on and so forth. But before he begins to explain what the full intent of the bad guys, the area is blown up. By what? I have actually no clue, but the bad guys are on the other side, and I don't know what they used to blow up the door, but they did, somehow. They had blasters, but I don't know how they caused the explosion, necessarily. Again, there is no context from our side. And Black Mantis, by the way, isn't there yet, at least not in the scene yet, so I still don't know why that door blew up, but whatever. because we see how powerful he is a little bit later on in the combat sequence that is to ensue. Because as they are fighting, both of them, the bro, Orm, I believe his name is, gets blasted by the red beam and gets like blasted away. So Mantis's team is getting ready to leave, and Aquaman's other allies regroup. In fact, how they knew their location is also beyond me, so there's also that, in addition to just people just knowing where to be and how to blow stuff up, apparently. They also just know the location. The good guys, the other ones, just happen to know where our current main good guys are by some means. I suppose there could have been a, like, little gag where that little octopus that was following Aquaman before was like did a short return and did like a little salute. I don't know, something to signify at least that, like, hey, you know, I did a thing for you, by the way. I informed them in technical language or whatever. I don't know, something to be like, hey, you know, the little thing that was there before, it's a little set up and payoff. Instead, it just comes across as, oh, we just happen to know where you are somehow. Again, really easy to think about a way out of that solution, but the movie just doesn't take the opportunity to do it, which is so, again, bizarre. Okay, so the family's all there, the wife's there. And with the backstory being told by Orm, Aquaman hears all of this and notes from that little exposition that the only way that they can encroach upon this being that's been hidden away is by the blood of one of Aquaman's family. And he's like, oh shit, my baby. So yeah, Black Mantis goes after a baby. So yeah, he's just, again, full on evil at this point. He's like, oh, you know, you failed the dog test, but for babies, essentially. Willing to spill a baby's blood for this creature that, you know, took over his mind, essentially. But the doc, the one that was, you know, all good, apparently, sends them a transmission to their current location. So he's continuing to help out in the ways that he can think of. And you know what? That guy's a good one. I think he's the best character in the entire movie, quite frankly. Like, this guy, he almost dies from the explosion. He gets threatened by Black Mantis various times, but this guy's a fucking trooper. He keeps helping out Aquaman, you know? He's just like, hey man, I was just trying to explore. Simple motivation. And he was like trying to help Aquaman later on, and now he's doing it again. And he, like, almost pays for it again in this same sequence. It's like, Jesus Christ, what a series of events to happen to this average guy that just wanted to explore Atlantis. And, like, the ending consequence is, like, he nearly gets exploded again, because later on in the movie that just ends up happening. Anyway. So, the two, Aquaman and Orm, team up once more to go on the offensive once more. And Aquaman gets the idea to attack Mantis with a similar type of strategy using sound waves. So he summons, using his, you know, main ability to talk to animals, summons a bunch of whales to sound and, I think, kill everyone on the ship? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, they're in the water, and then they, like, their ship kind of, like, goes a little down, so I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure, yeah, he just killed them. I'm pretty sure, but, you know, who knows how many more of them were like the Doc, you know? Because I don't know if any of them, the rest of them even had a character to speak of, so who knows if any of the other ones are being threatened? Who knows how many potential innocent people Aquaman killed? But then again, this is the DCEU, where that tends to be a thing that just happens, where the superhero just does a terrible thing, and you're just like, fuck me, why just can't the superhero just be a superhero, for fuck's sake, and, you know, be reliable and all that good stuff, and you know, when he does make a mistake, he works towards avenging that mistake, but no, he seemed pretty intent on doing that, and seemed to have zero remorse, but whatever. We're still in that bizarre phase where, again, I reiterate, the DCEU, I'm both relieved and concerned that they're doing a reboot, quite frankly. And I guess I can talk about that after the fact, but we gotta finish up here on the plot. And speaking of stepping up, so you know they have another clash, but that's not before or after where like Black Mantis is like he's like this close to the throne room. He's like, give me the baby. The Doc gives him something that's like packaged like a baby would be, and instead it's a bomb. So again, he nearly blows himself up again, as I just mentioned. Then he gets like blown away, and he's still alive. This absolute Chad of an explorer. My goodness. The Leif Erikson of this movie. My goodness. But this gives Aquaman just enough time to throw that trident right back at Mantis. He throws the evil trident at him and he catches it. And then he throws his own trident through that evil trident and through him. But that isn't before where, like, the brother gets the hand on the evil trident, and then he's like the one fighting it, and then gets taken over for a bit. That happens beforehand. But then the Mantis gets his hands on the trident again afterwards. So it was just like a little sequence of the brothers are trying. You know, they're like forced to face their demons off of against each other because he's trying to manipulate both of them from both of their perspectives, but Aquaman remembers first from the flashbacks of their good times and blah blah blah, so they're all good now. So the place is now blowing up, you know, outside of just the explosion. It's just crumbling now. Meanwhile, so Black Mantis / David is lost his, you know, superpower essentially at this point because he lost the trident. He's like hanging over the cliff. You see Aquaman even attempting to save him despite all of his deeds. He literally chooses death over life in this instance, so I guess he stuck to whatever convictions led him to not getting saved, but okay. I guess that's a way to go out, I guess. And Aquaman sort of gives Orm the okay to be like, yeah, you can go off and just be, you know, secluded here and give me tips on being king and all that. Then we cut to some more time happening later, but we don't get an actual time skip, so this is actually where you would want a time skip, by the way, not at the beginning of your movie. If you actually wanted to do a time skip, would be where you would probably want to do it, as we cut to, again, some point in the future where it's on the news, and we see that Aquaman has now revealed Atlantis to the people / the news, And it gives what I can best describe as a sort of akin to Iron Man type speech kind of thing going on here at the end of this movie. He literally says at the end of the movie, "I am Aquaman," at the end, after saying he's a bunch of other things, like a king, a father, a brother, a man, a hero, all that stuff. I mean, at the end, again, he just says, "I'm Aquaman." So he accepts his role as that hero. And that was Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Boy, that movie was rough. The pacing is so baffling. The earlier decisions are a lot more baffling than some of the later ones, definitely, and some of the later ones even don't make a whole lot of sense. So, yeah, this movie definitely crumbles in a lot of places. Like I said, I tried to find the very few things I could. Again, the Doctor character is pretty cool, all things considered. Again, I'm making the argument that he's actually the best character in the movie, and I will stick to that, because I'm not really sure what they were trying to do with Aquaman. Like, I don't know if I would necessarily agree or disagree that he's backpedaling on the whole leadership thing. Again, I think they could have set that up more properly. I would agree to that much. But again, I'm not sure if that's him hating being the king here is necessarily out of character from the first movie. Again, it could have been written a little bit more strongly instead of, all the time-skipping bullshit. But, all the stuff with Orm, it's pretty they barely communicate with one another, and it's mostly a repeated joke of like, "Yeah, don't call me brother," throughout the movie, and then at the end it's like, "Yeah, you can call me brother." It's like that was surprisingly flat. Again, the wife's barely in the movie, but good riddance, I guess, even though she's technically in the movie. And I know that she saves Aquaman twice, and I forget where it happens in the movie because, boy, it's so short. In my notes, I just completely blanked out on when those moments happened. If I'm being completely honest. But yeah, this movie. I felt like it could have worked. There's something here, believe it or not, but it definitely could have been stronger. And I think that could have came from just having why I think a reboot is necessary at this point for all of the superheroes. I think starting over at this point is definitely a necessity at this point, with, Man of Steel even that early on in the DCEU. That movie alone was already half and half with its critical acclaim. That is not a great place to start your DCEU, quite frankly. That's not the type of Superman story you want to sell for your, later on the road, your Justice League movie. And whether it be Superman or Batman, among those two, typically speaking, those two I would suspect would probably be the pick for your starter character for a reboot. Whether it be one or the other, I think they need to not only do it from one of those characters' perspectives, but just, again, restart the story. Just start over, start fresh, and I don't know if James Gunn is necessarily the best pick for this, but I guess it's a wait-and-see sort of scenario now at this point. From what I can gather from Guardians 3, is he can do a team effort exceptionally well. He's done he's done the entire trilogy at this point, so he can do it, the bigger projects, but again, to see something a little bit more contained, a little bit much smaller, with, again, one superhero starting us off, a Superman or a Batman, not really sure how he would handle such a project, currently speaking. and I don't know where they currently are in the speaks of all of that stuff, but in terms of this being the swan song of the DCEU, I can't say I'm too surprised either. Again, even from the off jump of the DCEU, it was already struggling from the off jump. Again, its first movie was Man of Steel, not a strong Superman movie, and then to follow that up with, the Batman movies, the ones with, oh god, I'm forgetting the actor's name now off the top of my head, but anyway, point being is that it is not a great pick. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this movie a 2 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. I'm not sure where I would land. Probably closer to a 2 right now. It's not very good. It is sloppily paced. The characters just aren't strong. The world building is a mess. And again, it's not too surprising for the DCEU. Again, kind of fits with the track record of DCU at this point, so someone better suited, again, needs to probably take over anyway. So again, we'll just have to, again, wait and see what James Gunn will pull out again, I guess. Wait and see. So that's my review of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. If you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. Want to head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers, so I can turn to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly, and fourth, to my Discord server, you can join, collab, and chill, and all that cool stuff. And until next time, everybody, bye-bye.